The boardroom smelled of polished wood and old decisions. Daniel noticed it the moment he stepped inside. Like the room itself remembered every argument that had ever ended in silence. The long table stretched between him and his parents, a quiet barrier. Evan stood beside them, hands clasped, calm in a way that felt practiced. No one offered Daniel a seat. That was the first sign. Daniel's mind raced as he stood there. He had spent years preparing for this moment, not with speeches or favors, but with work. Late nights fixing broken systems, early mornings meeting clients before anyone else arrived. He had carried the company through moments no one else wanted to face. He believed effort spoke louder than promises. Their mother smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Their father cleared his throat, the sound sharp and final. "We've made our decision," he said. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He already knew what was coming, yet hope still flickered, stubborn and foolish. Evan will be taking over as CEO. The words landed like a door closing, not slammed, just shut, calmly, as if this outcome had always been obvious. Daniel looked at Evan. His brother didn't look surprised. Relief crossed his face for half a second before he hid it behind confidence. That moment hurt more than the decision itself. Daniel waited for more. An explanation. A thank you. Something to explain how years of work could be passed over with one sentence. Nothing came. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Evan stepped forward. "I know this is sudden," he said, voice smooth, "but I want you by my side. We'll run this together." Together. The word felt empty. Daniel had heard it before. Together had always meant Evan leading and Daniel fixing problems quietly. In the background. Together meant being useful, not valued. Daniel nodded once, slow and controlled. Inside, something cracked. Not loudly, just enough to let the truth seep in. This wasn't about skill or trust. This was about comfort. Evan fit the image they wanted. Daniel had always been the engine, never the face. The meeting ended quickly after that. Papers were shuffled. Smiles returned. The future was discussed as if Daniel hadn't just been erased from it. He walked out without shaking hands. At his desk. The office felt different. Smaller. Colder. The walls he had stared at for years suddenly looked unfamiliar. His screen glowed with reminders of everything he still controlled. Projections. Client. Emails. Timelines only he understood. One file sat at the center of it all. The logistics contract. $850,000. The biggest deal the company had chased in years. Daniel had built it from nothing. He remembered the first call. The hesitation in the client's voice. The way trust slowly formed after months of honest answers. Every detail of the proposal lived in Daniel's head. The pricing logic. The backup plans. The risks no one else even knew existed. Evan had presented parts of it, but Daniel had written its backbone. Without him, the deal was fragile. Daniel leaned back and stared at the ceiling. His heart pounded, not with anger, but with clarity. He finally understood his place in the family and the company. Essential yet replaceable in their minds. Useful but never chosen. That understanding hurt more than any argument could have. He packed his bag slowly. No dramatic gestures. No slammed drawers. Each movement felt deliberate, like stepping away from something already lost. As he stood to leave, Evan appeared at the door. "Don't take this personally," Evan said. "This is just how things worked out." Daniel met his eyes. "That's the problem," he replied. He walked out of the building and into the noise of the city. Cars passed. People hurried by, carrying lives untouched by his moment. The world didn't pause for disappointment. At home, Daniel sat in silence. The weight of the day pressed down on him. He thought about calling them, explaining himself, asking why. But deep down, he knew the answers would only hurt more. His phone buzzed. A message from the logistics client. A small question about delivery timing assumptions. A simple fix. 5 minutes of work. Daniel stared at the screen. His fingers hovered. He felt the pull of habit, the urge to solve, to be reliable. That was who he had always been. Then he remembered the boardroom. The calm decision made without him. He locked the phone. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Memories surfaced one by one. School projects where Evan took credit. Family dinners where Daniel's achievements were brushed aside. Moments he had accepted because pushing back felt pointless. This time was different. This time, the cost of staying silent was too high. By morning, Daniel had made his choice. He wouldn't fight. He wouldn't beg. He wouldn't destroy anything. He would simply step away and let the truth reveal itself on its own. When his parents called later that day, he answered calmly. "I'm leaving the company," he said. No emotion. No accusations. They were stunned. Questions followed. Warnings. Guilt disguised as concern. Daniel listened, then repeated himself. "I wish you luck," he said, and ended the call. As he set the phone down. Fear mixed with relief. Walking away meant losing security. It meant starting over. But it also meant reclaiming something he hadn't realized he'd given up: respect for himself. Outside, the city moved on. Inside the company, meetings were scheduled. Presentations prepared. The $850,000 deal moved closer to decision day. And for the first time, Daniel was no longer there to hold everything together. Days passed, but the silence followed Daniel everywhere. Without the daily rush of work, time felt sharp and slow at the same time. Morning light filled his apartment, yet he stayed still, staring at the ceiling, replaying choices he could no longer change. Walking away had felt right, but right did not mean easy. His phone stayed quiet at first. No urgent calls. No apologies. That hurt more than anger would have. It confirmed what he feared. They believed they could manage without him. Daniel filled his days with routine to keep his thoughts in order. He ran early, worked out of habit, reviewed notes from old projects even though they no longer belonged to him. His mind refused to rest. Every number, every plan, every risk tied to the company lived in him. He knew what would fail first. The logistics contract stayed on his mind like an unfinished sentence. The client trusted the proposal, but that trust leaned on details only Daniel understood. He imagined Evan standing in front of them, confident but unprepared. The thought brought a quiet satisfaction, followed by guilt. He didn't want to hurt the company. It had been his life for years. Yet, it had hurt him without hesitation. Revenge did not arrive as rage. It arrived as patience. Daniel realized he didn't need to act. He only needed to stay absent. The system would expose itself. That thought scared him, because it felt deliberate. At the office, pressure built fast. Evan stepped into meetings with energy, but questions came hard and sharp. Vendors asked for guarantees. Analysts requested breakdowns. Evan answered in broad strokes, believing confidence could replace precision. Each meeting drained him. He told himself Daniel would return. He told himself this tension was temporary. Their parents watched closely. At first, they defended their choice. They spoke of leadership, presence, and vision. But numbers did not care about vision. Deadlines approached. Costs shifted. Small cracks began to show. Daniel received emails he never opened. Calendar invites he ignored. Messages that tried to sound casual. Quick question, one read. He deleted it without replying. Every ignored message felt heavy. He questioned himself often. Was this strength or pride? At night, doubt grew louder. Daniel imagined his parents' disappointment. Evan's stress. Employees worrying about stability. He reminded himself he had not caused this. He had warned them by leaving. They chose to proceed anyway. A memory returned often. Years ago, when a supplier almost walked away. Daniel had worked through the night to save the deal. Evan had taken the praise the next morning. Daniel had accepted it because the company survived. Now, survival without him was being tested. Logistics client sent another message. This one flagged urgency. They needed updated delivery contingencies due to market changes. Daniel knew the answer. He also knew the consequences of silence. The deal rested on thin margins. One wrong assumption would sink it. He closed the message and turned his phone face down. Across town, Evan felt the ground shift. Meetings stretched longer. His confidence cracked under questions he couldn't deflect. He felt anger rise, aimed at Daniel. He's doing this on purpose, he said to their parents. Their mother frowned. He's always been sensitive, she replied. He'll calm down. But calm didn't come. The client requested a final pitch date. Evan agreed without consulting anyone. He stayed late, studying documents that felt unfamiliar. The deeper he went, the clearer it became. He didn't know the deal. He had trusted Daniel to carry it. That trust now felt like a trap. Daniel felt the pull strongest the night before the pitch. He paced his apartment, torn between relief and responsibility. He asked himself if revenge was worth the damage it might cause. He asked if silence made him no better than those who ignored his value. He realized the truth was harder. Helping now would erase the lesson. It would prove them right, that they could overlook him and still depend on him when it mattered. He sat down and breathed slowly. He chose stillness. The next morning his phone rang. Evan's name lit the screen. Daniel let it ring. The call ended. A second call followed. Then a message. We need you. Please. Daniel read it once. He didn't reply. At the company. Tension peaked. Evan walked into the boardroom with a forced smile. The client listened politely as he spoke. Questions followed. Detailed ones. Evan stumbled. He answered with guesses, then corrections. Confidence drained from the room. Daniel, miles away, felt the moment without seeing it. He knew the exact point where doubt would settle in the client's mind. He had planned that moment carefully when the proposal was first built. By afternoon, the silence broke. An email arrived, polite and final. The contract had been awarded elsewhere. Daniel stared at the screen for a long time. No joy came. No thrill. Just a deep, steady calm. The cost of absence had been revealed. The phone rang again, louder this time, as if volume could change Daniel's mind. He stood by the window, city noise rising below, watching people rush through their lives without knowing his moment had arrived. This was it, the edge of the choice he had been circling for days. He picked up the phone but did not speak. Evan's voice rushed in, tight and uneven. We're about to start. They're asking things I don't have answers for. I need you. Just help me through this. After that, we'll talk. Daniel closed his eyes. He could see the room without being there. The long table, the polite smiles, the pressure hiding behind calm faces. He knew every question coming next. He also knew that one sentence from him, could save everything. His silence stretched. Say something, Evan said. Please. Daniel felt his chest tighten. This was the moment revenge stopped being an idea and became an action. Not loud. Not cruel. Just a decision to remain still. I can't, Daniel said. Evan exhaled sharply. You won already. Isn't that enough? Daniel opened his eyes. The city looked the same as always. I didn't want to win, he said. I wanted to matter. The line went dead. Daniel sat down slowly, hands resting on his knees. His heart raced, not from fear, but from finality. There was no turning back now. Whatever happened next would happen without him. Across town, Evan stood frozen, phone still in hand. The room around him buzzed with quiet expectation. He forced a smile and began to speak. Words came, but they felt thin. Questions followed, sharper this time. The client leaned forward, eyebrows raised. Evan felt sweat form at his collar. He tried to recall Daniel's models, the logic behind the numbers, but memory failed him. He answered with hope instead of facts. Each sentence made the room colder. Their parents sat nearby, watching. At first, they believed Evan would recover. Then they noticed the pauses, the uncertain glances at notes that offered no help. Doubt crept in, slow and heavy. Back in his apartment, Daniel felt every second pass. He imagined the tension rising, the room losing faith. He could still stop it. He could still call back. He didn't. Instead, he stood and paced. His mind raced through possible outcomes. Anger from his parents. Blame from Evan. Guilt that might follow him for years. He accepted all of it. This choice was his. The meeting ended sooner than planned. Polite words closed it. Promises of follow-up were made, but Daniel knew what they meant. He had seen that tone before. It was the sound of trust breaking. An hour later, his phone buzzed with a message from his father. Short. Direct. Call me. Daniel waited. Then, he called. What have you done? His father demanded. The disappointment in his voice felt heavier than anger. I did nothing, Daniel replied. That's the point. Silence followed. Then his mother spoke, softer but sharper. You could have helped. Family helps family. Daniel breathed in slowly. Family also, Nissus. You said. You didn't. Their words came fast now. Accusations dressed as concern. Fear hiding behind authority. Daniel listened without interrupting. When they finished, he spoke once more. You chose leadership without understanding, he said. This is the result of that choice. He ended the call before they could respond. Minutes later, Evan sent a message. Not angry. Broken. They chose someone else. The deal is gone. Daniel read it twice. The weight of it settled deep. The contract was finished. $850,000 erased in a few hours. The consequences were real now, no longer imagined. He expected relief, satisfaction. A rush. None came. Instead, a quiet stillness filled him. The tension he had carried for years loosened, not because the company had failed, but because the truth had finally been exposed. Without him, things fell apart. That knowledge hurt, but it also freed him. Night came early. Daniel sat in the dark, lights off, listening to the city slow down. He replayed the call with Evan. He wondered if there had been another way. He wondered if silence had been the only language left. Across town, the office lights stayed on. Voices echoed behind closed doors. Evan sat alone in the CEO chair, staring at a screen filled with numbers that now meant loss. For the first time, he felt the weight Daniel had carried for years. Their parents stood together in the hallway, no longer certain, no longer confident. The image they had chosen over substance had cracked. Regret began to take shape. Daniel's phone buzzed again. A new message from Evan. "I didn't see it before. I do now." Daniel didn't reply. Not yet. He lay back and stared at the ceiling. The moment had passed. Revenge, if that's what it was, had already happened. There was nothing left to do but face what came next. For the first time since the boardroom decision, Daniel slept without replaying the past. The choice had been made. The line crossed. Whatever followed would be built on truth, not silence. Morning arrived without noise. Daniel woke before his alarm. The room washed in pale light. For the first time in weeks, his chest felt lighter. The deal was gone. The company was shaken. The choice he made could not be undone. Strangely, that finality brought calm. His phone lay untouched on the table. Messages waited, but he didn't rush to read them. He made coffee, stood by the window, and watched the city wake up. Life continued, steady and indifferent. That comforted him. Later, that day, the calls began again. Not urgent this time. Not desperate. Measured. Careful. His parents wanted to talk. Daniel agreed to meet, but not at the office. Not on their ground. They chose a quiet cafe. Neutral. Safe. When they arrived, they looked older. Not by years, but by weight. The confidence they once carried had thinned. They spoke first, slowly, as if choosing each word with care. They talked about the loss, the shock, the pressure now facing the company. They didn't accuse him. Not directly. Daniel listened. He had done enough speaking. Finally, his mother asked the question hiding beneath everything else. Was it worth it? Daniel thought for a moment. "I didn't do it to hurt you," he said. "I did it because staying would have hurt me more." His father leaned back, eyes tired. "You could have handled it differently." "So could you," Daniel replied, calm but firm. Silence followed. This time it wasn't avoidance. It was reflection. They didn't ask him to return. Not yet. They spoke about restructuring, about bringing in outside help. They spoke like people learning, too late, that control has limits. When they stood to leave, his mother paused. "We didn't see you," she said quietly. "I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, but it was real." That night, Evan reached out again. Not with excuses, not with blame. Just honesty. He asked to meet. They sat across from each other, brothers, stripped of titles and expectations. Evan looked smaller without the CEO role to shield him. He spoke first. "I thought leadership was about being chosen," Evan said. "I didn't understand what it took to carry it." Daniel nodded. "I didn't want your seat," he said. "I wanted respect." Evan looked down. "I see that now." They didn't fix everything. Years of imbalance don't disappear in one conversation, but something shifted. Understanding replaced competition. Silence broke. Daniel left the meeting without promises. That mattered. He wasn't returning to old patterns. Days turned into weeks. Daniel built something new. Consulting. Work came quickly. Word spread. People valued his clarity, his honesty, his refusal to pretend. He chose clients who listened. He set boundaries early. The company struggled, but it didn't collapse. Outside leadership stabilized it. Systems were rebuilt. Slowly, painfully. The loss of the contract became a lesson spoken about in low voices. Evan stepped down months later. Not in failure, but in recognition. He stayed involved, learning from others instead of leading too soon. The parents stepped back as well, finally understanding that control was not the same as care. Daniel watched from a distance. He felt no joy in their struggle, no regret in his absence. The urge for revenge faded, replaced by something quieter and stronger. Peace. One evening, alone in his apartment, Daniel reflected on everything that had happened. Revenge had not felt the way stories promised. There was no rush, no victory speech. It was silent, heavy, necessary. What healed him was not the loss they suffered, but the choice he made for himself. Walking away had cost him comfort. Staying would have cost him identity. He understood now that revenge doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like refusal. Refusal to accept less than you deserve. Refusal to stay silent when silence feeds injustice. Daniel didn't rebuild bridges for approval. He rebuilt himself. And in that quiet rebuilding, he found what the title never gave him: freedom. The story ended without cheers, without winners or villains. Just people changed by consequences. And one man who finally chose himself.